some friends and Silvercore Club members have reached out to me about doing a live Silvercore podcast club event. They asked my thoughts on this, and I'll read you a text message that I sent. It says, I want the Silvercore podcast live event to support the mission of the Silvercore Club by helping people deepen their connection with nature, build confidence in the outdoors and in life, and foster a sense of community among like-minded individuals. The podcast serves as a platform to share inspiration, positivity, and real-world experiences centered on growth, resilience, and personal development. For the live event, I'd like it to be revenue neutral, attract a strong and diverse audience, and provide meaningful value to attendees through engaging content and opportunities for connection. I also want the event to offer clear benefits to any participating club partners who align with our values. While the format of the podcast can be wide-ranging, every episode is rooted in themes of positivity, grit, and growth, and I want the live experience to reflect that same spirit in a way that is welcoming and impactful. So here's my request to you. Is that something that you would be interested in attending or even being involved with? Let me know on social media, or you can email me, podcast@silvercore.ca. Another really fun Silvercore Club thing is the Outpost, and that's the private Silvercore podcast that comes out every single week, and I'm seeing more and more members taking advantage of that. If you're not aware of the Outpost and you're a Silvercore Club member, just log into your portal and you're going to have a unique RSS feed that's specific for you. You can download that, plug it into most major podcast platforms, and every single week you're going to be getting short form key takeaways to deal with the outdoors, with resilience, with all the different things that the Silvercore podcast talks about, but in condensed ways, as well as some behind the scenes with some of our guests and myself. Now, without further ado, let's get on with this episode. The last time we recorded together for the Silvercore podcast, it was at his kitchen table. Since then, he's launched The Collective with Chance Burles and cranked out hundreds of episodes, one a day for a year. Before that, he was a JTF2 operator, a world champion 24-hour solo mountain bike racer, and a high-performance coach with over 15 years of experience. His insights on wellness, mindset, and pushing limits are hard-earned, and his podcast, The Collective, is a veritable goldmine of practical wisdom. Welcome back to the Silvercore podcast, Shaun Taylor.
Thanks for having me, Travis. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you and have deeper conversations on any subject that fascinates both of us. And it has been a little while since we did one of these, but it feels like we spend a fair bit of time on The Collective together. So I appreciate you coming over and supporting us on our podcast. Chance Burles and I always love having you over for your insight, and the way you view the world to some degree is something that I've always treasured. So thanks for having me on. We'll see where we go with this one.
I really appreciate that. And I love The Collective. There's going to be links in the description for anybody who hasn't heard of The Collective or wants to learn more about it. You'll see the website where you can download it, where you can watch it on YouTube. It really is something special. For this episode, I was really excited. So it all started essentially from an Instagram post. Shaun, you were just giving her on your mountain bike, and you filmed yourself just flying up the mountainside on your mountain bike, and people are like just looking at you in amazement, like, holy crow, you got the turbo on or what? And then you film yourself afterwards, and you're just kind of talking yourself through the process. And what struck me was one of the people who commented on that post, and he says, serious question. With all the new, quote, load management around performance, have you done anything differently for recovery as you continue to push hard as you've aged? Asking for a friend, winky face. And of course, to me, I'm 46, turning 47, and I've got a plethora of injuries from not having properly taken care of myself, and my mindset's shifting. And when I read through what you have here, and I'll just kind of high note it, you're saying, top of the list, sleep, not just quantity, but more correctly, quality, nailing macros, hydration, supplementation, stress management, mindset routines, being comfortable in intensity, etc. And you go on. And so I thought, holy crow. I mean, somebody with your background and your both trial and error in your research and seeing what works, anybody who's got just half of an interest in wellness, physical, mental, emotional, longevity, is going to get a lot out of this podcast. So I'm stoked. I'm really excited to get this conversation rolling.
Right on. Like what is interesting is that video that you're referring to is a video that that's the kind of stuff that I do on a regular basis. The how hard I ride or how hard I train or how hard I engage in life is generally speaking a daily practice. And I don't think too much about it because I've just been doing it for so long. And quite frankly, I'm reluctant to put up videos that show me like deep into the hurt locker. Because I don't think everyone needs to see that on a regular basis. But more importantly, I never, ever want anyone to misconstrue or misunderstand the intent of why I put any videos up on Instagram. It's not to demonstrate how hard I can go or how deep I can go, because to some degree that makes me feel like I'm flaring out or that I'm dressed to impress, as it were. And I don't care for that feeling. I don't like to have anyone misunderstand anything that I'm doing on social media. So I don't put those kind of videos up on a regular basis. But after I put that video up and I started getting the comments, I thought, man, I should have been doing this sooner. I should have illustrated to others how freaking hard I train or how deep I go or how much in the hurt locker I'll put myself in willingly in order to experience the growth that I like to see in my life. And so the video was kind of like almost a casual effort to just put something up on my feed. But then when the comments started rolling in, and I believe the comment came in from Sergeant Hazard, and then of course you jumped in on that comment and said, what you said, I thought, man, I should have done this ages ago, because look at the dialogue that is going on now that I could have addressed ages ago. Because the reply that I gave to him, I typed that out in like 90 seconds with like almost no thought. And I hit send, and it was just kind of a classic case of, I'll just try to be a little bit helpful in this moment, tappity, tappity, tap, and hit send, and that was it. And I never thought much more about it until you hit me up, and I realized that I have been underserving in this area. I certainly could have addressed this a long time ago, given a lot more value in these matters. And thanks for picking up on that comment and engaging in this. And now look at where we're at. So that's well done on your behalf. So thanks.
Well, I guess it's a fine line between, people will look at social media posts and thinking someone's being braggadocio or they're just showing off, or are they leading by example? Are they showing what they do on the daily and providing a framework that other people can look at and say, hey, that might work for me too? And I think you have a framework that could work for a lot of people. Not everybody. Not everyone's going to have the mindset or the ambition to follow such a framework, but maybe they might modify it. And when I talk about this framework, so Craig Weller, Jonathan Pope wrote a great book, Building the Elite, and it's just this Bible of information. And I was talking with Craig, and I'm like, okay, Craig, I don't know if you heard this one before, Shaun, but I brought you up. I said, so you work with a lot of
listen, that could be good or bad.
Well, we'll find out in a second.
Yeah.
I said, you work with a lot of high-performance athletes, a lot of special forces, both individuals in special forces or who are training to be in special forces to reach their peak optimal physical, mental, emotional value. And I said, well, you and I, we know Shaun. What advice would you give Shaun if, looking at what he does, if you wanted to make a few tweaks here or there? And Craig's response was, I wouldn't be able to make any advice. I can't find any areas where
Yeah, I don't
I'd
know
be
about
picking
that.
away at what Shaun does. so, so, for somebody who
That was
does it,
nice of Craig, but he could have done better than that, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, no, I ribbed him. I said, "Look, you took the easy way out on that one for sure."
Mhm.
But but you do. You've got a process that you put in place, and I'm sure it wasn't by accident. And I thought maybe if we approach it, I sent you over just because I was having a little conversation with AI here, and figured if we kind of approach it from 5 different points. If we looked at sleep, the foundation of wellness, stress management, the invisible weight, nutrition and macros. Of course, I learned what macros are now, so that's good. It's more than just macaroni. Hormonal optimization, routines, and mindset. So if we looked at sleep, because that was where you started, can you tell me what you do for sleep, what role it plays in your life?
Sure can. So before I dive into any further material that we'll engage in throughout this podcast, I just want to state that. Oh, well, I should state a few things. First of all, I'm not a medical professional, so anything that I say, if I make any recommendations or if I have any opinion on anything, it's always worthwhile doing a cold eye review on anything that you hear here with someone else, with your doctor or with a naturopath or whoever you get medical advice from. Always check in with someone else who has some form of professional designations. The second thing is the things that I've learned throughout my life are an N=1 experiment. And so I've treated myself like the lab rat, as it were, where I have deeply considered Shaun. And then through that process, learning everything about me as much as I can, I then try to apply it within anyone that I've worked with in the past, either as a high performance coach with athletes or anyone that I have any dealings with. I try to pass on my N=1 to them, but always with the provision that this is your N=1 now. You need to pay attention, much like I'm going to describe throughout the rest of this podcast. So there's a couple of things to think about: medical and a professional medical opinion. And then, of course, you are your own N=1. The next thing I'd like to say is because this podcast came together in fairly short order over a couple of days, kind of thing. I in preparing for the podcast. In fact, I prepared more for this podcast than I prepare for my own podcast. So what's going on there? But as I was preparing for this podcast, I thought I would start capturing some of my thoughts, my opinions, my ideas, my processes, protocols, as it were, the N=1 of Shaun throughout my life that has taught me quite a lot in respect to what works for others as well. So, as I just mentioned to you before we went live or before we started recording this show, what I did do is I've got a document here that is about, when you condense it down into kind of like the size of a standard issue book that you would read this afternoon, kind of thing. It's about a 70-page book. And so it's pretty solid. There's a lot of information in there that I feel would be extremely helpful to, well, literally anyone who reads it. And so I need to segue into also currently I'm writing a book or co-writing a book with my very good friend, a friend of ours, of course, Seb Lavoie. And we're several chapters deep into that process right now, and things are going exceedingly well. I'm really stoked about that book.
Nice.
So what I've just described is not that kind of a book. It is not in competition to that book. It is not really a book per se, other than it's a really valuable resource that I should probably make available to the general public. In fact, maybe as a general offer, I'll throw this out there to your audience. I'm sure, Travis, you can find a way to use this book as a resource however you feel, maybe within your inner circle or whatever the case is. We can talk about that once we're off the recording, but I'd like to make that available to you for your general purposes as well.
Sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
So with that in place, as I said, I created quite a bit of notes, and each of the topics that you had suggested that we cover, I dove down pretty deeply into each of these pillars, if you will, and the first pillar being sleep. And so, as I said in my comment on Instagram, I feel that sleep is the most important thing a person can focus on for their overall, not just longevity, but their physical performance, their mental performance, their sense of ease with who they are as a human in this moment. A lot of it is driven by sleep. So, with that in place, the importance of sleep, I'll just throw some context out there right now to establish how important sleep is and how I learned this over multi decades of not getting good sleep and then getting good sleep and realizing the delta between those two positions. So, of course, as a young man in my first military career, a lot of my career trajectory was driven by a lack of sleep. The It was a fairly robust pipeline that I was in, and that pipeline required not a lot of sleep. And I'm not talking about in selection courses or in any form of testing, as it were. This was just the day-to-day regular tempo. Typically had you always lacking sleep. Now, lacking sleep, how much lacking sleep? That could be anywhere from only getting 5 or 6 hours a night all the way through to, well, just no sleep for some days. And if you got an hour or two here over the period of 3 or 4 days, then that was bonus. That was gravy. But back then, as a young man, I simply accepted those terms and conditions of that lifestyle. And so there's a cost to that. Nothing is free in life. And so that lack of sleep or poor amount of sleep or poor quality of sleep, which I'll get into momentarily, really had an impact on me, has an impact on everyone. If you're not getting enough quantity, that's a thing. But if you're not getting enough quality, that's a whole different thing. So if you choose to go to bed at whatever time and you think I'm going to get 7 hours sleep, you wake up 7 hours later and think, oh, that was great. I got 7 hours sleep, off to have a great day. That may not be the case because those 7 hours are determined as to how you'll feel the next day based on quality of sleep. And so there are a number of sleep cycles that ebb and flow throughout the night. I'm not talking about now a circadian rhythm per se. I'm talking about the regular ebb and flow as you move out of light sleep to REM sleep to deep sleep. These various phases of sleep are critical for you to be able to consolidate memory, consolidate thought, remove brain fog, human growth hormone release, and various hormonal releases, and et cetera, et cetera. A bunch of science that actually have in the small book that I'm going to send to you. All of these things impact us while we're sleeping, and we don't realize how much impact that has until we wake up in the morning and we throw our leg over the bed, step onto the floor, stand up and think, oh, I feel a bit groggy. Oh, I didn't sleep that well, but I slept 7 hours. Why am I ... Why am I not 100%? And so sleep as a whole is quite a complex subject that requires constant tweaking in order to be optimized. I'm not going to get into the real deepness of the details of the science, but suffice to say that it is a process that is not well understood, and more importantly, it's not focused on enough in the sense of optimizing it.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, when you're looking at optimizing sleep, I've got a Garmin watch and I was using it to help track my sleep. I was told that it's not really the most accurate. I recently picked up this Oura ring to try and track sleep a little bit better. Oh, I see you have one there too, and it seems to be a heck of a lot more accurate than what the Garmin watch is doing. And I'm still trying to make heads or tails out of some of the information in there. But it's funny. Some nights, like I'll get 4.5 hours of sleep, but it says I did well. I could do better on length of time, but it says all my other metrics I did really well. So I've got efficient sleep in there, and I was concerned because some nights I get very little sleep. Maybe I got to be doing something. I'm working hard to get more sleep. My challenge has been a 4 o'clock wake up, it seems. And I remember about half a year ago, I mentioned that to you, and you said, "Oh, that's liver." I think that's what you said, was liver.
Mhm.
I'm like, "What? Hold on." And then we didn't expand too much more onto that. So, what does that mean when you say someone's waking up in the morning and you say that's liver? What does that mean?
That's a great question. So I'll back it up a sec and talk about the Oura ring because I've been wearing mine now for I think about 8 years, and
Hmm.
so this is my third ring. This is the newest generation Oura ring, and I was one of the early adopters of Oura when they first came on the scene. And prior to the Oura ring, I had other devices. I've been considering data as generally speaking, a data scientist to some degree. I've been thinking about this subject since, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago when I bought my first quote unquote smartwatch, which was a polar watch. They were the very, very first public or retail public company that provided this incredibly useful at the time algorithm called HRV, heart rate variability. And Polar got the license from another small company that I'd started eyeballing on the side, looking for all the secret sauce tools, tips, hacks, tricks back in the day. And so I bought my first Polar. And at the time, HRV was pretty much misunderstood because the science was so emerging or evolving that no one really had a kind of a generalized opinion as to whether it was even good or not. And
Hmm.
so I engaged with HRV way back in the day. And like everything I've done, and I've already mentioned N=1 experiment, um, I treat my life like an N=1. And so once I bought that Polar, it was less about what the internet said HRV is or what Polar thought HRV was. It was precisely for me what it meant to me, not to them. And so the tools that we have, the Oura Ring or the Polar watch way back in the day, they are useless. In fact, they can be detrimental unless you treat them as a tool to learn about yourself at a deeper level by almost just isolating yourself from the rhetoric or the opinion or the what Oura will tell you it means. You have
Hmm.
to almost read between the lines of what the data is presenting, but really what's going on inside of you, how you feel that relates to you, how you think that relates to you, how you see it relate to you as your day unfolds. And so if I wake up in the morning and I check my Oura ring using the app on my phone, it might tell me that I got 6 hours of sleep, and it might tell me that I got 45 minutes of deep sleep and an hour and 12 minutes of REM, and the rest was light, and I was interrupted in my sleep pattern 2 times for 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there. I can take a look at that data and think, huh. But then I set it to the side and I reconsider what it actually means. I try to synchronize up the data with my feels. As I stand up, am I clear headed? As I walk to the bathroom to brush my teeth or whatever the case is, how are things unfolding the moment that I wake up until the moment that I come down, grab my glass of water, pound that, stare into the sun as per the Huberman, and all of the various sequences of events that I'll talk about, of course, as the podcast unfolds. I am constantly checking the external world metrics against my internal world understanding. And my
Mm.
internal world understanding is a database that I have refined daily for freaking coming up on 60 years. And so it isn't just guesswork for me anymore. When I see my Oura data, I know what it means. Not what the ring is telling me, but what I know it means to Shaun, his N equals one. And
Mm.
so for you, relatively new to the science data collection game, I will say, for you and anyone, what you need to do is establish that relationship between the metrics of the world and the internal feelings of your N equals one life, and synchronize those two so that they generally kind of align themselves to some degree, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So I I probably know the answer to this question, but given the fact that you've been tracking these things for so long through the Aura Ring, do you keep some sort of a spreadsheet or some sort of matrix where you correlate how you feel in the day with what the results of these wearable devices give you?
I do. So every metric that I track is established within some sort of software where I can discover the deeper trending or the historical trending of a tool like the Oura ring. This ring, in and of itself, is worthless unless you take the time to understand how it applies to you specifically as an N equals one. Now, the trap or the trappings of these kind of things is you'll buy a tool, whether it's Oura or Garmin or whatever it is, Whoop. It doesn't much matter what the tool is for tracking your sleep. It can't tell you who you are. It can't describe precisely what happened in the night. What it can do is track things like your body temperature, your respiratory cycle, your heart rate, whether it is in light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. It can tell you a bunch of things, but then it will interpret those things into, generally speaking, sort of a simplistic delivery of information, something along the lines of, wow, it looks like you didn't sleep that well last night. Try and sleep better tomorrow. And
Mhm.
so these simplistic sort of overviews are good for someone who's initially getting into the data tracking world. But what we all have to do is dig deeper than that or think deeper than that, not just accept the simple, almost casual observance of the software, but apply these software observations to how you feel, how it has impacted your life today in context of what it told you yesterday and what it told you a week ago and what it told you a year ago, and start forming a pattern. So, all these tools, any tool that you use to metric your life, whether it is counting push ups, however many push ups you did today, if you put that in the software or in a spreadsheet to kind of evaluate what did you do today, how did you feel today, how can you do it better tomorrow, these kind of things are only valuable if you can gather data for a long enough period of time that you can now start forming a pattern. Not just a data pattern, but an infelt pattern. So, to me, and you've heard me say this before, Travis, that in my life, I like to pattern recognize, or pattern recognition
Mm.
has allowed me to survive and it has allowed me to thrive. And so, without pattern recognition, I feel that there's a huge chunk of improvement that a person is giving away by not deeply considering the long term patterns of life. I'm talking a year to 2 to 5 to 10 years worth of pattern recognition. How am I doing now versus me 10 years ago? These are the kind of patterns that I'm talking about.
So As I look at patterns in my life as they apply to, let's say, sleep specifically, I know about 17 years ago, building my own business, young family, stress associated with all of those things, being an entrepreneur. And about 17 years ago, a great deal more stress plopped in my lap, and I noticed it greatly affected how I slept. And I would essentially not be sleeping, and I would hear everything that's happening around me, even when I did have those rare times when I was sleeping. And so I started wearing earplugs to block it out, and I could still hear everything that's going on. My senses were a bit heightened, my brain's going crazy. So I would take Gravol or diamond hydronate and to try and knock me out. And yeah, it gives you a bit of a sleep, but you don't feel great the next day. I mean, sure, you were sleeping, but it didn't feel like I was actually properly resting, and I wasn't tracking any of the stuff that these wearables do at that point. And then I started, okay, I didn't like that because I don't want to have some sort of a drug that I have to take in order to sleep. And so I thought, well, melatonin, that's supposed to be natural, right? And now I'm seeing research on melatonin that it's bad for you. It's like it messes with your hormones. So I came back when I look at these measurables, establishing a baseline and tracking where these things are different. It comes down to for me, ensuring that my external environment matches kind of what my internal environment is. And if I'm living in, quote unquote, the concrete jungle, if we can call Ladner the concrete jungle, which it feels like it to me, but I don't sleep nearly as well as I do if I'm out in the bush or if I'm in a place where there's external matches a bit more. So I've touched on a few things. But more specifically, I guess, what sort of patterns have you recognized that lead to better, more restful sleep? And when it comes to, let's say, supplements, are there things that a person can take, like, I don't know, magnesium, I think is supposed to be good, that will assist in a better, more regulated sleep?
Yeah. So, in order to answer this question, like yourself, you were giving context by stating that there was a period of time when you weren't getting much sleep and you felt the obvious downside or the negatives to poor sleep.
Mm,
And so I think that's really important that anyone who listens to this takes a moment to think, okay, I feel the way I feel right now based on the kind of sleep that I'm getting. How would I feel if my sleep was way better? And until you experience that way better, this conversation is almost like a neutral conversation. It's almost inert. It almost has no value until a person takes the time to think about, I could be 10 times the person I am if I just dialed in my sleep more. And so I know this to be true because I'd stated earlier that in my first career, the tempo was such that sleep was a luxury to some degree,
mm,
more so than, an obligated thing. But as I continued on in my other careers, I had lots of moments where I still wasn't getting good sleep because of my career demands. But on top of that, I'd like to throw this other layer that I was also dealing with that was really impacting my sleep detrimentally. And that is, I was having a lot of nightmares.
mm,
And I didn't realize that, and I was having nightmares every night. And I was
mm,
getting terrible sleep because of the nightmares. So I was working super hard, getting to bed super late because the work had to be done, then getting up super early because the work was still there. And then in the time that I was in bed, my sleep was disrupted by I didn't have good sleep hygiene, which we can talk about shortly. And I was just dealing with nightmares. And so the nightmares that I had are a result of PTSD. And I had those for over 20 years until I mentioned to my family doctor that I was having nightmares. Um, I just kind of thought it was a normal thing. I didn't talk to
mm.
anyone about it, and I just kind of put up with it. And it's not like I had tons of conversations with tons of friends and saying, "Hey, do you have nightmares every night? How many do you have, and how bad is it?" And this just wasn't a conversation that I'd ever had until
Right.
I talked with my family doctor, and it was just a casual mention And so we found a way to sort of reduce those levels of nightmares. And then I started applying way more sleep hygiene and way more focus on quality of sleep. And so the amount of sleep, as I said, is one thing, but the quality of sleep is a whole different thing. And so these sleep hygiene protocols are, you can Google sleep hygiene, or perhaps in the little book that I just wrote about this subject, you'll find out a lot more about sleep hygiene protocols and then supplementation for sleep. So I'll start with sleep hygiene first. Certainly, one of the things that I try to control, whether I'm in my own house or whether I'm traveling, is make the room as cold as possible. If you can get your room to like kind of chilly, that's good, because that promotes, I'm not going to get into the biological reasons, but that promotes a deeper, faster way of slipping into your sleep. Noise distractions. Any noises that are going on throughout the night. If you're in the big city and you're used to all of the train noises and bus noises and taxi noises, that's okay. You're used to it. But that doesn't mean that your body isn't recognizing those noises and responding to them all the time. And
Mm.
so you may feel like, well, I'm just used to big city noises. But as cavemen, we don't we can't just say, oh, that's a taxi while we're sleeping. What happens is we're momentarily awake because of that taxi horn. And so I wear earplugs every night, whether I'm in my own house or whether I'm traveling. And if I'm traveling overseas in an area that I think is a bit dodgy, I'll still wear my earplugs, but I'll put other measures into place to make sure that it's not that much of a concern for me. Same thing with an eye mask. Every night I wear an eye mask, a blackout eye
Mm.
mask. And in our master bedroom, we have blinds that pull down to reduce the light as well. To the degree controlling light, to the degree that if I wasn't wearing an eye mask, a little maybe a digital alarm or a digital clock next to the bedside table, it's oriented away from me, so it's facing away from me, because even with your eyes closed while you're asleep, light from these kind of a device can, the short wave can penetrate through the eyelids, still hit the receptors of the eyes as you're sleeping, and indicate that it's time to wake up. Those early
Mm.
signs of light will start to pull you out of various sleep patterns. And so controlling for noise, controlling for temperature, controlling for light is critical as far as I'm concerned. Now,
Mm.
as part of the sleep hygiene protocol, when it comes to as bedtime approaches, of course, you can start reducing all forms of electronic devices. And if you can't control your electronic devices, then certainly you should have a blue light filter in place, like on your phone or on your laptop. If you like
Mm.
to wind down with a little bit of a movie or some YouTube or some Netflix or whatever the case is, you can reduce the light that is blasting from your laptop or from your TV or whatever the case is. When I'm going to bed at night, as I'm heading upstairs, I turn all the lights off in the house, and this is just a little routine. And believe it or not, all these tiny little routines add up into a pattern that helps you believe or helps you understand or literally puts you in a place where you're ready for sleep. I kill all the lights in the house. And then from the main floor, I walk upstairs through 2 flights of stairs into the master bedroom in pitch black, open the door, stealth in like a ninja, stealth right up to my bedside table. I put my earplugs in, I put my night mask on, and I slide into bed as quietly as I can so as not to disturb my wife. But all of that is stealth. All of that is in the pitch black. And so I appreciate the idea of stealthing up the stairs silently and flowing in a way that isn't janky or jerky or disconnected from the moment. And so that simple process of ninja-ing my way up into bed is a way for me to like become grounded and aware or present in the moment as to what I'm doing in the moment as I head to bed. And so these tiny little subroutines that I have in the way of sleep hygiene are really important little protocols that help sort of build out the infrastructure of preparing to go to sleep or having a good night's sleep. As part of the sleep hygiene protocol, I suppose we could talk about supplementation. And so, supplementation isn't something that you can, a minute before you go to bed, reach over, grab a little pill, throw it down your throat, and head off to bed, and bam, you're having the best sleep ever. These are things that you can do throughout your day, but certainly specific to sleep, I feel that magnesium is extremely important. There's a couple of forms of magnesium that I use. One is magnesium threonate, and one is magnesium bisglycinate or magnesium glycinate. The glycinate I can use on a daily basis throughout the day for whatever purposes, and magnesium is a really useful compound because there's over 300 biological processes that require magnesium throughout your day. So magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate is something I will use irrespective of sleep. But then for my sleep, I might use magnesium threonate, which helps cross over the blood-brain barrier. It's also more of a cognitive magnesium. And so, without getting into too many details, I will say that magnesium, those two forms, are something that I take almost every single day. In respect to melatonin, as you mentioned, I'm not actually that much of a fan of melatonin. And if melatonin is used, it is an acute, or it is used precisely and temporarily to offset something like jet lag, as an example. And I would say use it as a cautionary basis because it can interfere or interact negatively with your endogenous or with your inbuilt hormonal system that creates the melatonin for you throughout your life. And so it is something like a 2 to 3 day melatonin at very small doses, which the doses I put in the handbook that I'm going to send you. This is something that is temporary and is only used as a quick fix for a acute problem, as it were, something like traveling across multiple time zones into another country. But it's nothing that anyone should rely on. There's a number of other things that you can use nutritionally. Certainly, one of them is try not to eat 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. Now, there's a whole variety of reasons for that, to do with how the gut-brain connection works, or the mind-gut connection, and of course, how if you've got a big old steak in your belly that you ate 5 minutes before you went to bed, there's some blood shunting there, and there's some processes that have to stay busy throughout the night to work on that, etc. Whereas those processes are better used to help clear out some metabolic waste and are better used to blah, 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 things that I talk about in this little book. These choices that we make, I will say this as kind of a universal statement in respect to this topic. The choices that we make throughout our day should be driven by setting us up for the best sleep ever. And so at some point in the day, we all have come to that point where I wouldn't mind a snack. It's 10 o'clock at night. I wouldn't mind a bag of Miss Vicky's. It's 11 o'clock at night. I wouldn't mind a Twinkie, whatever. These choices where we have those little snacky moments, where we have those moments of, I wouldn't mind a bit of comfort. I wouldn't mind a bit of calories. I wouldn't mind a bit of, I'm bored. I need to eat. These choices are, as far as I'm concerned, the pivotal moments in our day where we either capitulate to, I'm bored, I want to eat, or more correctly, we stand up strong or fortify our position and realize, no, that isn't going to serve me well. I'm going to make the right choice, and I'm not going to eat that 2 to 3 hours before I go to bed because A, I know physiologically speaking, that's the right call. But maybe most importantly of all, mentally, I know that I am freaking optimizing to the max. That sense of I'm doing everything right goes a long way to understanding who you are throughout your life. So these daily little giveaways where I'm just going to eat a bag of chips because I'm hungry, these little giveaway moments are the things that kind of make us backslide mentally.
Mm.
We know it's not right what we're doing, but we'll still do it because to some degree we're being lazy. And it's that kind of not giving up to the laziness of the moment. It's being strong in understanding that what's right for you is something that is a little bit harder to do, a little bit of discipline, a little bit of adversity, if we can call it that. Those
Mm.
are the right choices because even if you go to bed feeling a little bit of hunger and a little bit of boredom, good, because you have set yourself up over the long haul to realize that you're better than that.
Hmm. It's funny. Whenever I go to bed feeling hungry, I don't wake up feeling hungry, and it's weird how that works. But I could, like, let's say I'm out in the bush and I had very little food and I've been pushing hard. And I'm like, man, I'm sure hungry. I wake up the next day, I'm like, I'm good. I can go again. So did I
Yeah.
really need that extra food? Was it really something my body wanted? It sure. The the face mask is interesting. I use the earplugs, use them every day, have for years. I can still hear everything that's happening. When the kids were young, I could hear them making noise, even with the earplugs in. It's funny how your body just adapts to these things. Face mask, I think I'll give that a shot. I got blackout blinds in the room, but I think that makes a big difference because I will notice that the second that the lights out, I'm out in the tent, lights out, it's time to get up. Light goes down, time to go to bed, time for me to go down. So I got to imagine that it would play a big role. Um,
It is interesting. So, what we're talking about is removing your sensory receptors. So,
mm,
hearing's gone, vision's gone. Now you're in bed laying still. So we're removing our senses, as it were, and ultimately, what we are as human beings is we're sensory organisms. We understand the world around us through our senses, and our consciousness or our mind or our spirit then you know interprets that and does what it does. That's a whole
mm,
different podcast. But in respect to the senses, once you strip out the hearing and the vision, what I've found is as I'm laying there in bed, even when I'm asleep, if if someone gets up, like my son this morning had to get up really early to go to work, and to catch a bus to go to work, I felt him moving in the house. I didn't hear him, I didn't see him, but I felt him moving in the house. I felt the vibration of him moving
mm-hmm,
in the house. And so
mm-hmm,
as he walked across the floor, I could feel the almost imperceptible motion of him moving. And if not for that stripping away of I'll call them really loud sensory inputs of vision and hearing, then my sense of vibrational feeling would be duller or wouldn't be as refined. And so, as I said earlier, and I didn't want to get too deep into it, because there's many ways that you can be in a foreign country and still wear earplugs and an eye mask and still be okay.
mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of physical things that you can do to sort of control that environment. But one of the things that I have and at my available as one of my tools that I've developed over years is my sense of things when I'm asleep is quite refined. And so it's not that I can feel a butterfly flapping through the air, 12 blocks away. But what I can do is I can feel when someone walks up to the door in a hotel and like just pushes against the door handle. It's hard to describe, and I don't always feel it. It's not like it's magic, but it is a sensory tool that has developed over decades based on stripping out all of the other extraneous stimulus, as it were.
I know what you're talking about. I feel it as well. And I think a lot of it comes down to trusting your gut feeling, and then
Mm.
checking afterwards, was my gut feeling correct? And then you build that baseline of, okay, what I felt actually was something, and you move forward. I use that as a technique to be present and to calm
Mm.
down. And I've used it. I've talked about it before. I use it with my kids when they're growing up and something's happening. They're completely overwhelmed and they're feeling really activated. I'm like, okay, just take a deep breath, right? Just sit here for a moment. Tell me, what do you hear? Well, I don't hear anything. Okay, keep listening. What do you hear? Oh, I heard a car outside. Okay, good. Now keep listening. Do you hear the fridge? No. Well, listen until you do. Oh, there it is. I can hear the fridge. And as they start minutely looking at these little things, it calms them down. And it's a trick that I use with myself. And and I don't know, it's probably as old as anything, but it never sunk in to me to use it for sleep. People talk about counting sheep as a means to be able to uh, fall asleep, and that's an age-old sort of thing that they talk about in cartoons, and everyone's seen that one. For me, I don't learn things normally. It's like trying to hit the baseball. I couldn't hit the damn baseball. Keep your eye on the ball while I'm watching it. I'm keeping my until somebody said, watch that baseball until it impacts the bat and leaves. Oh, now I can hit it. Right? I thought I was doing it. But somehow somebody says, or I learned, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, concentrate on very minute things. For example, if you're walking out the front door, imagine yourself what it feels like when you grip the handle. If you're barefoot, what the concrete feels like, what the stones feel like, what the grain of the wood looks like, and try and concentrate on these tiny, tiny little things. And I found that to be a useful tool for me anyways. If I'm in a state where I just can't fall asleep, that's what I have to do to shut my brain down and move into sleep state.
So I'm going to jump into that, but I want to make sure that before I jump into that, that preceding it, the things that will cause these kind of issues in bed where someone is just laying there and can't go to sleep, or is just laying there ruminating, or is just laying there and, just fidgeting. Before that happens, make sure that any stimulants that you've got in your life, as an example, if you drink coffee, like I'm drinking world-class coffee right now, um, the half-life of caffeine is 5 to 6-ish hours, depending on your own unique physiology, how you process caffeine as a molecule. So if you're having caffeine later into the day, well, congratulations, you're going to have a disturbed sleep cycle. For
Mm.
myself, as an example, my rule of thumb is I cut coffee off from noon onwards. I try not to drink coffee after 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And my coffee consumption, which I have limitless ability to, if I need coffee, I'll just go and roast some more coffee. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not for lack of coffee. My issue is I love coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I'm less focused on the stimulant aspect, the stimulant properties. I'm more interested in the beautiful notes of coffee. And so
Mm.
I still limit myself to just 2 cups of coffee every day. And by 2 cups, I mean 2 small cups, or one large, the collective mug. So that's all I have for coffee in my day. And if I was to drink coffee in the afternoon, again, that half life of caffeine molecule is problematic.
Mm.
Also, from a stimulant basis, I'd like to shift into, it's not a stimulant, but it is sometimes used to help with sleep, and that is alcohol. And
Mm.
alcohol is problematic when it comes to sleep quality. As an example, early on, when I was first got my Oura ring, I started analyzing all of the aspects in my life as to the upside downside in respect to the data. And over a very short period of time, it was easy to see that alcohol had an extremely negative impact on sleep cycle. And so, bam, there goes
Mm.
alcohol. And I don't touch alcohol at all, hardly ever anymore since then. And so, same for my wife. She wasn't much of a drinker either, maybe a glass of wine from time to time, but she was tracking her sleep with the Oura ring and bam, cut out alcohol completely because of the downside or the negative impact on sleep. Just sleep alone, never mind all the other factors. That was enough to cut alcohol out of our lives. And so, stimulants or these substances that we put into our bodies all have impact, and not all of them are upside. So you have to consider these kind of things for sure. Further to that, since I'm talking about stimulants, as it were, I'd mentioned magnesium. We talked about melatonin, but there's many other things that people will use to help support their sleep, and that may be L-theanine or sour cherry juice, or there's a variety of different things that I mention in the book. But certainly one of the things that gets tossed around is herbal ergogenic aids such as ashwagandha. And so, or reishi mushroom. Now, reishi as a whole, I'm kind of positive on, but ashwagandha as a whole, I'm not that positive on. And the reason for that is because ashwagandha is quite a unique compound, or is quite a unique impactor, because not everyone responds the same. And so again, if you hear me mention ashwagandha and you think, oh, that might help with my sleep, be cautious, because ashwagandha, as the example, can have problematic outcomes for individuals who are on other medications, or who are have some sort of mental, not instabilities, but have some sort of mental struggles that negatively interact with ashwagandha. There's a whole list of things that I mentioned, just using ashwagandha as the only example of how you've got to be careful with these kind of almost um, almost safe feeling herbs that aren't that safe depending on who you are. So, as an N=1 experiment, you have to pay attention to how these things may impact you. So, if someone's casually throwing out advice like, yeah, just take ashwagandha, bro, that's the moment that you pause and go and do some research, or talk to a naturopath or to a doctor or to friends who have experience in that area, and value those other opinions before you start pounding ashwagandha carelessly.
I think what you're touching on here will naturally segue into the next one, which is stress management, the invisible weight, because alcohol, like you, it doesn't have much place in my life. And I found that the day after drinking alcohol, 2 days after, 3 days after, it was still affecting me. It affected my outlook, my mood, my stress. Like, I'd find I'd be more irritable than I would if I hadn't had any. And that's even just a couple of drinks. And I'm not going to say no one should ever have alcohol. It's terrible. I've heard people say that. I do think there is something to be said for a social aspect of going out and perhaps letting loose with friends at certain times that they might not otherwise be able to experience that social aspect. But by and large, I really don't see positives to drinking alcohol. And if you could find that same social aspect without the alcohol, even better. But the idea that these different supplements like ashwagandha, like you say, well, it's just some natural occurring thing. Well, so's hemlock, so's nightshade, right? There's a lot of things out there that are naturally occurring that really, really are bad for you. But they're marketed, I think ashwagandha is marketed as a stress management thing too, as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you do to,
Anti-anxiety to some degree.
okay.
It's a stress management herb, or that's how it's marketed.
Right.
As all things are marketed, all things are labeled. Alcohol
Mm-hmm.
is labeled. And so, I believe this to be true, that no matter what's standing in front of you, even you as an example, Trav, when and we've had lots of conversations in the past on podcasts, the moment that I'm in this podcast today, I kind of tear the label off of Travis.
Mm.
Like I don't care for labels like this. So I'm not reevaluating you as a person. I'm simply observing you as the new person today in front of me that is called Travis. That is quite probably not much different than the last Travis I talked to, but it's still a new Travis because you've learned things since then. You probably haven't got any taller because that's probably not possible. But the idea being that when it comes to herbs like ashwagandha, the moment that someone raises that up in a conversation, I'll look at the person differently. I'll tear the label right off them and think, what I thought this person knew before they said ashwagandha is now different. I'm
Mm.
viewing the person differently in this moment because if they come across as basically an ill-educated layman who's throwing out advice as if they're a medical doctor, well, guess what? I will categorize you in a different way in that
Mm-hmm.
moment than perhaps last time we talked. So
Mm-hmm.
knowledge is power, as they say, but knowledge is also a potent destructor to some degree. If someone gets super excited about their health journey, they're now on their own personal crusade to become the best version of themselves. But this is day 2 of that journey, and they just walked into a naturopathic store and picked up a bottle of ashwagandha, and the clerk says, "Hey, good choice. That's going to solve your life's problems." When you walk out the door with that bottle, if you start regurgitating in your honeymoon phase of excitement of now you're on your path to glory, if you start talking about ashwagandha as the holy grail of supplements to anyone who will listen, you effectively almost become like an ambassador for the thing that you don't understand.
Mm.
It's pretty typical for it happens in everything. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is an example as a new white belt. If someone's been on the mats for like a week or 2 weeks and they like BJJ, all of a sudden they are the biggest proponent of BJJ. They will tell anyone about the upside of BJJ, but they don't understand the downside yet. They
Mm-hmm.
don't understand anything yet, really. And
Mm.
so these labels that get put in front of us, I try to tear them off and re-understand them for myself with an n equals 1 sort of perspective.
I like that. You know, the saying, no man enters the same river twice because
Mm.
he's not the same he's not the same man and it's not the same river. And I'm also reminded of, do you remember that old show with Patrick McGowan called The Prisoner? McGowan.
Didn't he do what other movie did he do? Art movie series back in the day.
That's right.
Uh,
Um,
the Oh my goodness. It'll come to
so I,
me anyway.
I know
It
him
was a
from The
series in
Prisoner.
England.
And I always remember as he's driving in at the very beginning, there's this sign, or as they go into wherever the colony is, I think it's supposed to be Australia, but wherever that colony is that they're all held prisoner on, they have this sign there that says, questions are a burden unto others, answers are a prison unto oneself. And when you start looking at removing labels, yeah, the more questions we ask, we're burdening somebody else. But the more we accept the answer as true, the less that it opens our mind up to what other possibilities there might be. So I like that idea of removing that label each time. And I think that's really strong advice for anyone looking at any of these supplements to dig deep, remove that label and say, why? Where is it coming from? And is this going to work for me in my situation? But
Before I continue, wasn't he also in The Saint way back in the day? Wasn't he in that
was
series as well, The Saint? Anyway,
he may
I'll
he
figure
he
that
may
out
have been.
later.
Yeah, the good old saint.
So the when it comes to stress, as an
Yes.
example, of course there's many biological processes. There's the HPA axis, the the hormonal interaction throughout our day, throughout our sleep, throughout our lives. All of these things are well understood from a science perspective, but what they aren't well understood is through the N equals 1 perspective. And so you can spend the rest of today picking up um, a biology book and better understanding how humans work at a biological level, but that doesn't mean that it directly applies to you. What it does mean, it's a loose framework of how you work, but now it's for you to understand the details of the N equals 1 experiment called you. And so these general rules of thumb, I'll call them, these science-based rules of thumb of how the body works, they've been established a long time, but you have to understand how you work with the science. And so there's no escaping, there's no ignoring, there's no pretending that the HPA axis won't have a downside if you don't understand it and don't control for it. And so, as an example, if you want to leave your house right now and start running and not stop running for another 4.5 weeks, not eat, not sleep, not drink, there's downside to that. The HPA axis will get involved. Your hormonal panel will get involved. Lots of things will get involved at a biological level. But how it impacts you, Trav, and how it impacts me, and how it impacts any of the listeners is unique to them, to us, to me. And so I understand how I work at these biological levels because I understand the broad science, but I also understand the experimenting with Shaun aspect, the N equals 1 experiences. And so I'm just going to throw out some terms right now that will help with this subject of stress resilience. So, stress resilience is an example. How you become resilient to stress is you face stress and then you learn how to manage stress. Your body learns how to manage the stress, your mind, your emotions. You learn to deal with stress, but it is not a free ride. It is not a no cost aspect. As you're learning to build your stress resilience, there is cost to that. And unless you're managing the cost by applying some recovery protocols and other things that we'll get into, that you're now backsliding rather than growing. And so as an example, cortisol is a problem for anyone who is deeply engaged in stress resilience building or is facing a lot of adversity on the regular in order to improve their stress resilience. Cortisol will start slowly impacting your physiological optimization to a degree where you may not understand why you feel so bad, but it is the hormones, your hormonal panel, this hormonal soup within you that is constantly running every millisecond of your life to try to create homeostasis or try to create a balance within your life. Every aspect, every little variable, every little impactor that hits you from all the 360-degree angles, they all have cost. If you are out there driving hard in whatever you're doing, whether it's your work life or your personal life or your hobby life, if you're working really, really hard, pushing the pace, there's a cost to that. And so that cost will come in the sense of your HPA axis, or to offset that cost, you could improve your sleep. So now here's where we put things together. So if your stressors in life are not well managed or you can't manage them and your sleep is terrible, now just those two things alone have almost a conflationary or have a double dip bad sort of impact that both things were controllable by you, you haven't controlled for them. And now it's not just like twice as bad. What it is a bunch of things bad because those two, stress and poor sleep, exacerbate themselves to a degree where it should start to be notable. But it doesn't become notable if you're not forming a pattern. You just simply accept that every day you wake up feeling worn out, no energy, no spark in life. You feel like drudgery day after day. Life shouldn't feel that way. And there's reasons why it shouldn't feel that way, and they are all controllable.
Do you meditate? Do you have a process for sort of emotional, mental regulation for stress management?
For sure. So maybe now's a good time to separate the two worlds that I like to think of that I operate in. There's the external world and there's the internal world. And I truly believe that our internal worlds, my internal world that I have, is not just the foundation of how to live a good life, but it is literally my life. The internal world, if I am at peace, if I'm stable, if I'm functioning well internally, then the external world is quite easy. But if my internal world is not settled, if I am not applying all of my inner work, then my external world doesn't fall apart, but it shows signs of cracks, of fractures, of not going as well as it should. And
Mm.
so my inner world, when it's good to go, assures me that the external world is going to be good to go. And so, how do I maintain a good inner world? Well,
Mm.
first of all, I'm literally doing it right now. I am very present in this moment. I don't know what I said a second ago, and I don't know what I'll say a second from now because I'm not concerned about that. I am comfortable with podcasting enough now after hundreds of them that I just simply slip into this moment that we're sharing together, this conscious sharing moment, that I don't have to sweat the details of what's going to happen next because I am so centered and grounded right now. And I know that sounds like maybe boastful or whatever, but I'm so centered and grounded right now that I feel very at peace inside, which reflects externally to the world as I'm doing okay and it's all very manageable. And I quite like my external world. That's how I feel about things when my inner world is good. And so, how do I get my inner world that good? Well, I couldn't when I first started podcasting. And as you know, you saw it yourself when people started asking me to begin podcasting. Oh my goodness, I was so reluctant.
Mm.
And of course, you were in my kitchen when you came out to Roslyn, and that was one of the first sort of, I would say, big podcasting moments that I had, and I was sweating bullets. I had
You
no
did
idea
so
what I was
good.
getting myself into. And maybe externally it looked okay, but
Mm.
internally I was in turmoil. And I didn't know how podcasting worked. I didn't know what I was supposed to even be doing in the moment. I didn't know what I was supposed to deliver. There was a lot of not just unknowns, but there was a lot of personal doubts. Like
Mm.
you know how bad my imposter syndrome is, but like it was warp factor 3 bad in that moment. And so I just wasn't settled. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't centered. And
Mm.
so though before podcasting I understood mindfulness, and before podcasting I understood meditation, and before podcasting I understood a lot of things academically, and I was applying a lot of them in my life. But podcasting as we'll call it a crucible for lack of a better term, has obligated me to refine things several hundred podcasts later so that this moment that we're in together right now just feels like a normal extension of my life. That is a normalization or a pattern structure that I've created for me to be able to offload all of the mechanics of things, offload all of the details of things, and simply trust myself to exist in this moment peacefully and calmly and let it unfold. That's mindfulness to me now.
Mm.
And the mindfulness that I understand today is different than the mindfulness I understood 2 years ago, as an example. So, yes, mindfulness is a huge part of my life right now. I said this to someone just the other day that I'm seeking a existence in life where I only exist now. Not 10 minutes ago, not 10 minutes from now. Those things are inconsequential to me. That's what I'm trying to seek is way less about if this, then that, and more about the right now of the moment. Man, it makes things way easier for me. But that took a long, 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 long time. And I had to baby step my way into it, like grabbing 10 seconds of mindfulness here and 15 seconds of mindfulness there over a period of years until now. I don't always manage to do it, be present all the time. But when I'm in my flow state, like now, this flow state is not only good for me, but it is actually appealing. Like it's something that I really love. I love the flow state.
Mm-hmm.
I love it on my mountain bike. I love it on the BJJ mats, but I love it in these moments where I can simply almost drop out of my ego existence, as weird as that may sound to some listeners, and simply be with you in this moment without sweating the details. So mindfulness is very important to me. Meditation is also important. I do it every day, typically first thing in the morning. I'll get out of bed, drink my water, stare at the sun, sit down in my chair, take a moment and drop into some meditation. From an external perspective, from the outside world, an outside observer looking at me, they might just see me chillaxing in a chair and maybe doing whatever. But what I am engaged in that moment is a deep practice called meditation. Meditation is what I would define as the functional structure or the discipline of a frameworked discipline of applying a process to get closer to being mindful or being present and grounded in the moment. So again, meditation is not necessarily mindfulness. Meditation is the practice to move you more towards mindfulness. That's a loose framing of the subject. So to your point or your question, 100% meditation is a part of my life. And it doesn't require like statues and candles
Mm.
and someone dinging bells. It doesn't require any of that. I can meditate. I can go for a ride later today, flow across the planet in a mindful state, get off my bike, sit on a tree log, and drop into some meditation out in nature or standing on a log on one leg and meditate. The
Mm.
meditation is the formal structure to get me back into the moment of being mindfully present as I stand on the log. And so those two things play together well. But ultimately, I believe that the overarching theme should be seeking to be more mindful. I hope that answers your question.
It does. And one of the big takeaways that I see in that, and I like how you touched on how the internal affects the external. So you have stress that's happening. Is that an external stress? Is it an internal stress? Well, probably it might be both, but probably the biggest portion of it's going to be an internal mindset or perspective. And some people are really smart and they can learn from other people's mistakes, or they can listen to a podcast like this and they can just leapfrog ahead years in their journey of becoming mindful and being present and shifting their perspective on what might be ailing them or stressing them in the moment. Other people, like myself, not so much. They have to learn through the school of hard knocks, and they actually have to go in and experience things over and over until you start figuring a better way through it. But and I've always wondered, people say you manifest your destiny. Okay, yeah, sure, I get it, right? I've heard this a lot, and what a man thinks he will do. Okay, sure. But there is some sort of secret sauce to that. There is a reality to that, to what you think and what's going on in your head will actually manifest itself physically around you. And whether that's because you thought of something, you vibed, you got on a frequency, and things unfolded in that fashion, or whether it's because our brains are really good at kind of piecing things together. If afterwards you look at it and you say, oh, it's because I vibed that this ended up happening, I think the end result of how you feel and how your external world feels around you, it's going to be the same. So it doesn't matter how you want to ascribe to that thought process, really addressing mindfulness, shifting that perspective, like, okay, I'm doing something hard right now, But what's hard for me today isn't going to be the same as what was hard for me yesterday. What's hard for me yesterday is no longer hard. That's easy. It's like that Homer Simpson quote when Bart got caught out naked and everyone's laughing at him. He's like, this is the worst day of my life. He's like, it's the worst day of your life so far, right? But I like how you separate that, because I think having a perspective shift will really help people when it comes down to the stress management. What is it that's stressing me? What control can I have? Or is it that I have no control and I shouldn't be stressing about this thing? The universe will unfold as it should.
So, let me throw out an example. We were talking about sleep earlier and the rumination of, or maybe someone's laying in bed. They want to go to sleep. They can't go to sleep because they're thinking so much about going to sleep, whatever the case is. Half an hour later, they're still laying there staring at the ceiling, or if they've got an eye mask on, they're just laying there thinking about the same thoughts over and over again. I wish I could go to sleep 1,000 times. And so pattern interrupt whatever your routine has been, whatever your pattern has been up till now. If it isn't working for you, you got to do it a different way. And so, as you said, the idea being what you ascribe to, or what you believe to be right, how the world works, how your life works, how this all works. If you believe that's how it works, but it isn't working for you, then find a different way to make it work. And I would ask anyone right now to just, for the moment, put aside your disbelief about what I'm going to say. I'm not suggesting that this is right or wrong. I'm just saying put aside your disbeliefs and just hear me out, and then maybe you can use it later tonight or in your own life years from now. When you lay down in bed, there is one way to think about things, and it's this: if we all exist in a field of consciousness that is in real time, so you can't control the past or the future, we simply all exist now. As you climb into bed, you lay down, you can't shape the future and you can't shape the past that's gone by. You only have the moment as you lay there in bed. And if you kind of think of it abstractly as you have personal agency, but you have no control of this moment that we're in. It is simply the universe unfolding. And if you accept that the universe is unfolding and you can't control the way the universe unfolds, it's just going to unfold. It takes sort of the pressure off you of thinking that you can control this game all around you, which you can't. You're simply a participant in a game that you have certain personal agency in, but you can't make the impossible happen. What you can do is you can give up to what's happening. You just simply have to accept that things are going to unfold the way they unfold. So, with that in place, as you lay there in bed, you know that you can't solve tomorrow's problems as you lay there in bed that night. You've just got to simply accept that you need some sleep so that you can deal with the day tomorrow. You can't deal with it now. You'll be dealing with it tomorrow. So give up tomorrow and simply be in the moment that night and chillax. Because you can't control tomorrow. Just let it unfold. Let your sleep cycle initiate. Don't keep asking yourself the same questions or working on the same problems that won't be solved that night. They'll be solved tomorrow. Don't worry about all the past mistakes that you made throughout the day or the day before. They are gone. Just simply accept that you're existing right now. The universe is unfolding. You're a witness to the universe unfolding, and just be okay with that. Now you find a way to just drop into sleep and do better the following day. That's your job. Get some sleep, do better tomorrow.
I like that. I so when I got married, people are writing in the registry a bunch of well wishes and different ideas. And number of people put the tried and true, never go to bed angry. And one person wrote in, don't be afraid to go to bed angry. Sometimes things look better in the light of day. And sort of like with your, what problems are we going to solve right now in the dead of the night? Maybe it's okay maybe we'll just go to sleep right now. Don't try and control this one. It might look better tomorrow.
By the way, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you, just like you throw the curveball on the collective podcast from time to time. You're a person who likes to quote Viktor Frankl,
Yes.
and so that's all about context. So
Mm-hmm.
as you climb into bed with your tiny little problem of your car has a flat tire that needs to be changed tomorrow, now you don't get any sleep because you've got to change the flat tire tomorrow. In context of how big of life's problems can be, in context of Viktor Frankl's problems in
Mm-hmm.
a concentration camp, like our problems to some degree are minor when we contextualize them against really, truly big problems. And so these things, as we climb into bed, can be exacerbated into, the car won't start is now the new Mount Everest of
Mm-hmm.
the night. And you're trying to climb Mount Everest in your mind when really all it is just a flat tire. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how we build things up in our lives, or more correctly, how we crush them down into non important factors, that's kind of a secret sauce, as it were.
Well, what about nutrition? We touched a little bit about on it with not eating before sleep, but nutrition for your daily life, for longevity, for uh, operating at your optimal. How do you approach that?
Well, I'll give it in the simple terms. When we're talking about macros, really what we're talking about is protein, fats, and carbs.
Mm.
And so, first point of importance is protein. So, I always try to hit my daily protein intake. Fats and carbs, I can screw those up, but I cannot screw up protein. Now,
Mm.
of course, I don't screw up fats and carbs because I've been at this game a long time and I understand how important they are. But first, in order of priority, much like sleep within our lives is super high priority, protein is super high priority. Now, I'll talk about two things: the amount of protein and the timing of protein. So, the amount, generally speaking, I try to get 2 grams to 2.5 grams of protein per lean body mass. So, as an example, I'll do it in pounds for anyone in pounds. So, I weigh 170 pounds right now. My lean body mass is about 160 pounds. So, I'm stripping out any additional fat, as it were. And the reason I say lean body mass, it's important because if I had an extra 200 pounds of fat on me, that sort of isn't really a great equation to run your protein needs off of. So lean body mass. Now I've got 160 grams of protein I need, 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. If it's in kilos, then it's 2 to 2.5 grams per lean body mass. Now, that's an amount of grams of protein I need each day. That can shift depending on how much output I have in a day. So, my bare minimum is that if I go out and I do a really destructive workout that really tears up my muscles or really creates a lot of hurt locker on me, then I'm going to increase my protein for that day for a couple of days, by the way. But generally speaking, my baseline, as suggested, I always hit it. Now, timing. With protein, I believe you need to get about 30 grams of protein per meal, per feeding. And so let's say you only eat 3 meals a day. Now you're at about 90 grams of protein. Where does all that other protein come from? As an example, Shaun needs about 160 grams of protein, 150 grams, depending. So I'm short on protein. So I'll have to supplement throughout the day either through protein powder or supplement through snacking that is protein driven. And so there's many ways to do that. I'm not going to describe all the various foods or the combinations of beans and rice and all of that good stuff. That's for you to take into consideration based on how you've normally eat and what your budget is. But I've found invariably that I have to take on some form of protein powder. Now, the protein powder that I would take on, I'm not going to mention any brands, but there's many ways to slice that down. It could be whey protein isolate, it could be whey concentrate, it could be casein, it could be vegan protein powder. There's many forms of it, and it's quite a science to being specific about which one works best when. But forget about all of that for right now. Just understand that nearly every single person I talk to doesn't get enough protein. And I mean, like, line 100 people up against a wall and maybe only one of them is getting enough protein that day. And if you're running a protein deficient life, it is negatively impacting your entire lifestyle. And so protein is critical. Next, fats. There's many forms of healthy fats. In the book that I'm going to send you, it talks about how you can get those from food sources such as like avocados or olive oil or coconut oil or these various types of things, nuts, seeds, and etc. But you can also supplement that with things like omega-3 fish oil or etc. etc. So you can get it from natural sources or you can get it from supplementation. Either way, fats are important, not just for how your body works physiologically, but for your freaking brain. And again, that's discussed in the book. And then finally, the last piece is carbs. Carbs are important, of course. As an athlete, as an ultra endurance athlete, or someone who rides a long period of time, or anyone who has any sort of long term, when you go out hunting, Trav, if you're out multi hours, well, that is a carb preferential activity. And so there's a number of reasons biologically or physiologically why carbs are important in these kind of endeavors. But again, that'll be discussed in the little handout that I'm going to shoot your way. Carbs are also important to take into account your hormonal profile. So, as an example, when I was coaching athletes around the world, for my male athletes, I would have them do carb refeeds at least once a week. And by refeed, I mean like really push their carb intake that day in order to offset some of the, hormonal damage that may have occurred through all of the stressors. But for my female athletes, I would ask them to do 2 refeeds per week simply because of the specifics of the female hormonal pattern, how important it is, how negatively impactful it can be if a female athlete who's pushing really hard isn't getting enough carbs. And so protein is non-negotiable. You gotta hit your bare minimums. Fats are something that you inject throughout your day, and then carbs is something that you use like a lever or a modulator, all the way up to a 10, all the way back to a 3 on a scale of 10. Depending on how your day has gone, what you are going to do later that day, and how to set yourself up for the following day that may be like a big hunt or a big effort. And so carbs are modulated depending on the day's needs and the day's upcoming. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. So I've heard people talk about cutting carbs out altogether because they're trying to lose weight or some ketogenic diet. And I've also heard people say that protein shakes and these mixes aren't really the best way to be able to get protein into the body. Like maybe, I think, amino acids. From my layman's perspective, and I have done very little research on there, but do amino acids somehow convert into a protein? I've heard chatter about both of these.
Well, so, I'll refer back to generally what I said at the start, and that is I'm an N=1 experimenter. And so, when I started getting into ultra endurance racing, like that was back in 2007, my wife will attest to this. She came in one day and she said, the only thing I was missing was a white lab coat because I had a variety of different powders all over the kitchen counter. And I was like on a scale mixing them into little capsules, my own little specific boutique supplementations that I was creating based on my own curious mind and my my desire to better understand context on my N equals one. And so what I had done is I had purchased a bunch of isolated amino acids where I was, of course, your branch chain amino acids are critical, but then some of the other essential aminos, I was taking amino acids, isolating them, and combining 2 or 3 aminos into a cap, and then playing around with those to see if it would improve my vision, improve my hearing, improve my all kinds of things. And so I played around with supplementation and with food for so long that I have dialed in Shaun. But for anyone who's listening to this right now, you could do the exact same thing. But what it does require is some curiosity, and it requires some intentionality as to your N equals one experimentation. These things where you're dabbling with this and dabbling with that and not really paying attention to its impact or its long-term sort of pattern, that's worthless to me. These are little band-aids that you're spending money on and never learn anything from. The moment that you take on anything, like if you start playing around with amino acids, they're expensive and they should be treated like, oh, it's time to start paying attention now and developing the pattern on this stuff. Stepping back from the specifics of that, I'd say that in my opinion, this is just a general opinion for any general listener, unless they have really specific needs for certain amino acids, I'd stay away from that particular trajectory. You're better served to buy a high quality whey protein isolate. Preferably something like a New Zealand whey protein isolate, because the New Zealand cattle or milk doesn't really have a lot of growth hormone, and it's really clean grass. It's really yada, yada, yada. So get yourself a high quality whey protein isolate that has a really good amino acid profile. On any jug of amino acid that you buy, protein that you buy, you'll see an amino acid profile on the label. Now, interesting side note, you can buy really good protein, and then that protein manufacturer can do what is called amino acid spiking. So they will insert aminos into the jug in order to bump up the profile so it looks really appealing to the purchaser. And so, like anything, when you're out there if you're buying a car, you should never just walk onto a car lot and say, I'll take the first car that I see. What you should do is be in whatever store looking at the supplementation with your smartphone and just checking out, is this generally suited to my needs? And how I've done it in the past is something that is certified for sports. So as a competitive athlete, I never wanted any product in my body that was spiked or was adulterated with some trace elements of steroids or whatever the case is. I wanted super clean food that was reliably certified so that it wasn't negative to my body. It didn't make me feel like I was cheating. So there are ways that you can do that. There are brands, there are standards here in Canada, North America, around the world that meet a competitive athlete's needs to stay clean. And if you're buying that kind of a product, then generally speaking, it's a high quality product. It's where you start getting into relabeled brands that may be coming from other countries that aren't quite as tight on standards, that you're ingesting things that, quite frankly, you don't know anything about.
It's a good point you're bringing on about competitive athletes needing to stay clean. And there's a lot of negative chatter in the past I've seen about testosterone replacement therapy or testosterone supplementation. Years ago, I worked in a gym, and you could see the people who were abusing the steroids and the testosterone. But recently, there's been a lot of I've noticed a shift in the way that's approached. And even in your response in that Instagram post, you mentioned as you're getting older, you had blood work done, and there's some TRT at a very mild dose that you're looking at. That's interesting to me, just from the mindset shift of so much negativity always growing up. Testosterone's bad. You never want it, to this new way of thinking of, well, hold on a second. Maybe it's not as bad as we're saying. And maybe there's a way to be able to use it in an effective format so people can live a well-rounded, fulfilling life.
So this is a great subject that we should probably just take a few minutes to dive into a little bit. Based on my own personal experience, of course, all of my research over the years, and having dealt with athletes who are sensitive to these kind of subjects. So my stance on steroids or any artificial or endogenous aid or anything that is, I'll call it not natural, for lack of a better term, I was never a fan of it. As a competitor, I always wanted to be standing on a start line, looking to my left and right and knowing that everyone's competing cleanly, or more correctly, I will say, competing on a level playing field. That's really important to me. Fairness is a central tenet of my life. Things have to be fair in order to evaluate myself against someone else. And so if I step up on a start line and I'm clean and I'm stepping next to someone who isn't clean, as long as I feel like I'm doing it right, it's now on them that they have to deal with their own nonsense rather than me have to worry about their nonsense. So as a competitive athlete, like competing at world championship levels, I always wanted to make sure that I didn't feel like I was cheating, for lack of a better term. However, I'm not competing anymore in anything at a high level. And so I switched to TRT when I was 59 and a half. Now, interestingly enough, that number is important, 59 and a half, because right about the time I was 56, 57, my family doctor was telling me, Shaun, your testosterone levels are concerningly low. And I just looked at her and I said, Andrea, I want to make it to 60. I'd set this arbitrary number in my head where I thought, I'm just going to make it to 60. I'm going to stay clean till I'm 60. I just want to earn it myself. I had this number that I'd put in my head many, many years ago. And at 59 and a half, my family doctor finally said, that's it. You got to get on it. And I said, okay. And so the moment that I did, I just shook my silly head and thought, man, I should have done this ages ago. Not because all of a sudden I realized that I'd turn into like Captain America or anything like that. What I was doing was gaining access to the amount of testosterone that I need for my lifestyle that supports my needs the way I like to live my life. And so my levels were super low. The moment that I jumped on TRT, I'm now on, I don't mind giving my values for anyone who's listening right now as sort of context. I self-inject subcutaneously twice a week. And I try to do one on Tuesday and I try to do one on Saturday. And so I self-inject 0.35 milliliters of testosterone cypionate, so 0.35 ml. So a total of 0.7 ml per week, which if anyone knows anything about anything, that's a really low dose. And so I wanted to use the very lowest dose I could in order to feel the way I want to feel and perform the way I want to perform and recover the way I need to recover and sleep the way I want to sleep and have the libido that I want to have the energy that I feel is important. Certainly as a man, testosterone is effectively fuel, energy. And so I wanted to have all of the things that I wanted that I had kind of forgotten that is normal. I wanted all of that back, but I didn't want an extra milliliter of testosterone that would make me feel like now I'm taking advantage of the system. Now I'm into an area where I'm focused on taking more testosterone to have bigger muscles or etc. Like I'm not interested in the aesthetics of my body. What I am interested in is the performance of my body. And it just so happens that my lifestyle, as some dudes who track me on IG, friends of mine, people who pay attention, they've said, dude, you're looking like kind of jacked. You've got some muscles. You're doing that whole thing. That's got nothing to do with testosterone. That's got everything to do with every single day I'm freaking hammering on things. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I do in the shadows, in the background that is out of sight of the internet is freaking pushing the pace. Like I am pushing my body hard. And the resulting outcome is I've got muscles, but it's not because I'm in front of the mirror flexing. I'm not I'm not lifting or I'm not functionally training to be aesthetically pleasing. My life is all about performance rather than aesthetics. And so the muscles that show up are just a result of my lifestyle, not a result of all the bicep curls that I do.
So when you started the TRT, how long did it take to start noticing positive results?
That
What
week,
really, and what were the positives, and are there cons to it?
there are. So the positives for me were bam, sleep was improved.
Mm.
Attitude, my sense of like my positive drive, positive outlook on life was improved. My sense of being a man, as crazy as that sounds,
Mm.
was improved. My libido increased. My wife is thankful for that. And so, just saying, I mean, it would be wrong if I didn't mention it because I
For
mean, it
sure,
is a
for
thing.
sure. Yeah.
And so, within the first week, right away, I was like, oh, I had forgotten that's what testosterone feels like because I had been so medically chronically low for for so long that I'd forgotten what like that little feels
Mm.
like. Now, when I do this, that could be misconstrued as all of a sudden because I'm taking a little bit of testosterone. Now all of a sudden I'm all aggro. I'm all roiding, raging out. That is so not the case. Because again, the amount that I'm taking is quite low. It gives me enough drive that my testosterone supports my lifestyle that I've had all my life. That sort of sense of aggressive purpose, that drive, that will to win, that will to create an outcome, that, as you mentioned, Trav, that manifestation of the
Mm.
life that you want. Well, testosterone is actually a manifester of the life in front of you. If I see something now that I want to make happen to some degree, and I mean a small degree, like all things, the sleep, the food, the this, the that, and the TRT, all of these things are synergistic. It's not just one thing makes it all happen. It is all things make it happen. And TRT is just that extra little nudge for me to target lock something and think, oh, that's done. That's already done. And that could be something in the future, weeks from now. But I know that when I target lock it, it's done. So that had kind of started to slip a little bit as I entered
Mm.
into my 50s, late 50s. And it's not that I wasn't producing outcomes, it's that I didn't have that same
Mm.
target lock on things. And so I'll even go so far as to say that to some degree, TRT reduced some brain fog that I had going, a little bit of lack of clarity, as it were. So
Mm.
it did many things within that first week. Now, looking back at it, I guess I've been on almost like 2 years now. Over that period of time, I have better refined my understanding of it. Like I said, I've dialed in my dosing so that it's the absolute minimum that I want to use. I haven't explored anything more. I never entered into TRT as an experiment to see how much can I take per week versus
Mm.
how little can I take per week. I always started with low and slow. And as I low and slowed my way up, I settled in at zero point 0.7 ml per week. And that works for me. It
Mm.
works physiologically, but perhaps more importantly, Trav, it works psychologically because I know that like my performance is to some degree natural. My T levels are just out of the low range now, and I feel like that's what I deserve. And then my outcomes are a result of my performances.
Why do you think they're low? Just age thing, decline, genetic?
I
You used
think
it all up
that
when you were younger?
I used it all in my first career. I think that there's many things that impacted my testosterone level. For sure, age is a thing. I mean, as certainly as man, as we get older, these things start dissipating. But without a doubt, I've been super hard on my body. I've been super hard on my life. And even in my casual time, in my sports or in my hobbies, not career wise, but just simply sports or hobbies, like I go hard. I mean, I did 30, 24-hour solo mountain bike races at a world championship level. Just, I had a hard hobby. And that
Mm,
hard hobby is like there's collateral damage, there's cellular damage, there is long-lasting damage to all of these things. I'm not just talking about free radicals, I'm talking about like just chronic injuries that you pick up along the way that over a period of time start impacting your hormonal profile. And so there's many things in my life that have diminished testosterone, not least of which was sleep, of which I was getting
mm,
terrible sleep. So all of these things add up over time. And as a man in my 50s, I just found myself at a point where I couldn't deny the blood panels that I was getting from my doctor.
mm.
And I couldn't deny her medical advice. And I couldn't deny the research that supported the decision that I chose to engage in with TRT. So, on that note, for TRT, it's super important, I think, not just as an athlete, but as a human, that at least once a year you're doing a full blood panel, and preferably a full blood panel with a hormonal panel attached to it. So you can better understand your free testosterone, your total testosterone, your estrogen, your blah, 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 all of the things that are important for you as a human being to be optimally set up. You, again, like the Oura ring, if you don't have an Oura ring, now you're guessing as to what your sleep quality and quantity was. Same with when you wake up in the morning and you're tired. If someone says, if you take a blood panel and hormonal panel, you'll have metrics, why wouldn't you do that? That's
Mm.
creating a baseline understanding of who you are today versus who you were 37 years ago. And so
Hmm.
these things need to be tested and patternized throughout life.
So with the TRT, once you're on it, you got to stay on it because your body stops producing its own testosterone, from my understanding. Similar. So when I was late teens, early 20s, I started getting a receding hairline. And I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. I thought it was supposed to happen when I get really old. And so I go to the doctor. I'm like, what can I do about this? I'm like, well, we could put you on this. I forget what it was. There's some expensive medication. But you can also buy this other medication, which is basically the same thing, but it's marketed for something else. You can cut them up into fours. And so, okay, but how long do I have to take it for? Well, for the rest of your life. Okay, well, what happens if I stop taking it? Oh, well, all the hair that you would have lost up to that point will just fall out. I'm like, I'm not taking this stuff. For me, it didn't make sense. I'm going to lose my hair. I got to suck it up and figure it out now while I was young. And because I just knew I'm going to find myself in my later years in a situation where I'm not going to have this stuff and I'd have to deal with it then. Is it similar with testosterone? So you got to keep taking it. And if you stop taking it, is there going to be like a massive issue?
So, my understanding is, and this is based on research, based on talking to lots of people, my belief is that once you're on it, that's it, you're on it.
Mm,
Certainly at my age anyway, over a period of time, the testosterone that I'm injecting basically derails, for lack of a better term, derails the natural production within your body. And effectively, you're now reliant on injecting testosterone every week, which
mm,
I accepted when I started the process. I thought about it and was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be self-injecting for the rest of my life until, someone invents the nano robots that, get injected into my body and then they take care of everything. But
Mm-hmm.
until then, I'm going to be self-injecting. Now, it's a bummer. Like, I don't like sticking needles in myself. It's no bueno. But I'll say this, that the option is either do it or don't. And if I don't, then my quality of life is diminished. And so I want an optimal life, particularly for anyone who's listening right now. Once you're in your 60s, you can see the horizon. When you're in your 30s, you don't see the horizon. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. But in your 60s, you do. You've had enough time to look backwards and gain wisdom, the clarity of wisdom. But you also realize that you're now in a phase of life where the end is approaching. And so how much of a quality of life do you want in that last phase? Well, I want maximum quality. I want to be always optimal. I want to be doing spinning back kicks on a tree log after hammering on my bike for 4 hours. That's
Yeah.
what I want to do because that pleases Shaun. And that is kind of critical to this conversation. Over decades, I've put myself in a position where I'm used to performing. And I'm not talking about performing little things, I'm talking about performing big things for me. And so these big things don't just they don't just appear magically. They are things that I've spent decades building up to. Now that I'm in the position that I am, where I have certain expectations of myself, but more importantly, I love the life that I've created and I love doing the things that I do. If someone says to me, all that stuff you love doing, we're going to take that all away from you just because you're freaking old, or you can take 2 shots per week. Where's the shots? I'll take it.
Yeah.
Because I'm too deep into love and life to not do something like that. I mean, you're almost giving up the opportunity to live not just the life you love, but maybe even deeper love for the life that you don't even understand yet until you take some TRT. So, all that to say that there is upside, downside to TRT. It should be something discussed with your medical doctor. It should be something that you do some self-research on, talk to some friends. And if you're listening to me right now, understand that it can be a significant game changer if you fall within the category of it's a good idea for you. So give it some thought.
What about peptides? I've heard people talk about them. Are they, I think in Canada, they're kind of a gray sort of thing. In the States, I think they're regulated and accepted. It's just come on my radar when I started researching all of this stuff for the podcast.
So, about 7-ish years ago, I banged myself up pretty good on the BJJ mats. It was almost a chronic injury, some muscle issues and whatever, some tearing, and I wasn't sure how to address it, and so I started looking at peptides, which were kind of a emerging trend at the time. I learned about something called BPC 157. And for anyone who is new to peptides, BPC 157 is fairly well known. There's a number of different peptides out there that can create a number of different responses within the body. So I'm not going to say I did self-inject BPC 157 for a period of a couple of months because that may or may not be appropriate. But I do understand BPC 157 for a couple of months. And what I will say is I found that it didn't provide the outcomes that I was hoping for. And in context of something like, TRT as the example, I found TRT to be a way more efficacious or a much more impactful modality or inject into my life.
So all of this kind of boils down into the last one I have here, which is routines and mindset, the glue that holds it all together. Can you talk a little bit about your routine and the mindset that you have that's been employed throughout your life for the special forces, for elite performing athlete to where you are right now?
Sure. I think that it's important for me to first of all establish the my life before when I was in high school. I was a skinny, underperforming kid. I weighed 135 pounds before I joined the military. I didn't think I amounted to much, and throughout my military career, I learned that that was completely untrue. That I could amount to anything that I wanted to amount to, because the process that the military taught me, or what I learned in my military career, was it's for me to use the tools that I've got, this body, this mind, this spirit. It's for me to use it in ways that produce outcomes. And so the military taught me how to do that. And then once I left the military, not as a skinny, underperforming kid anymore, I had certain expectations of myself. We'll call them tier one expectations, for lack of a
Mm,
better term. I was introduced to the awareness that I am capable of nearly anything. Now, that sounds like a bold claim and it sounds braggadocious. And I would never have believed it when I was in my 20s. But as I moved into my 30s, I started adopting that tier one mindset. I came to the realization that if I want it to happen, it's freaking done. It's just whether it's important enough to me, if my why is strong enough, if for the following reasons, I have to save the planet, consider me saving the planet. And
mm,
so I was taught how to do it. I came to believe in how I'm capable of doing it. And then from that point on, it was simply a matter of me learning how to do it through supporting structures, through better sleep, through better nutrition, through better, et cetera, things that we've talked about. And so, to some degree, all of this stuff doesn't amount to anything. None of the stuff that we've talked about amounts to anything unless you start believing in yourself, unless you create a why within yourself, a reason for existence, a reason for listening to this podcast. If you're at this point in the podcast where you're starting to think about some of the things that we've been saying, all of it is easily engageable once you accept the idea that you're on this planet for a purpose. You ain't just here to exist, you're here for a reason. And that reason is for you to start understanding. And also, it's important that that understanding isn't fixed. So, what you think you're here for, listening to this podcast right now, is right now. But a year from now, you can be a completely different person. You can apply some of these things that we've been talking about, and you can be, again, comparative to now, you could be twice the person that you are. And that twice the person that you are will have new goals, new ideas, new reasons for your existence. And so that has been my way over the decades. It has been a daily refining process that looks at life holistically or synergistically as all of these various elements that I can control are all being controlled by me for a purpose. And without a purpose, you don't control anything. You simply accept rather than control. And so my why is strong. My understanding of the things that I appreciate are strong. Why I'm here is strong. And so that makes me want to control all of the variables, to optimize all of the variables, so that when I do this, it's freaking with velocity, it's with intentionality, it's with intensity. And if I was getting poor sleep, or I was eating poorly, or I was thinking poorly, or if I didn't understand what box breathing is, or if I didn't understand what psychological or physiological sighs are, and all the little tips and tricks and tools that I picked up along the years, if I didn't have a strong why, none of those things would matter. I'd simply
mm,
just be existing in life, and then I would die. And that isn't enough
mm,
for me. And so to kind of conclude all of that commentary, I'd say that, as I said earlier, my inner world drives the external world. And the more peaceful you can be in your inner world, the more you can understand your reason for being in this world, the sooner that you can velocitize your outcomes, the sooner you can start shaping the fabric of the world around you. If you think that you're a prisoner of the world, you just haven't learned how to be the jail.
Yeah. The orchestrator.
That's right.
Yes. I love it, Shaun. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should talk about?
Yeah, there sure is. But I know that we've gone long on this because, because of my way. I probably dove a little bit too deep into some things and not deeply enough into other things. And so there's quite a list of things that I would love to talk about, but I know this is probably being a bit long. So what I will say is this subject, longevity, fitness in your later phases of your life, or how to be a better performing human being overall holistically, is a massive subject that we have covered some of it, but not all of it, that's for sure. I think it's probably best if we don't dive into all the other things that I have in mind, and I'll simply rely on the crutch, as it were, of hopefully the book that I'll deliver to you. At the moment this podcast is done, you'll have it in your hot little hands. Then you can choose what to do with it within your own sphere of influence.
That sounds amazing. So there's going to be links to the collective in the description here. They'll have links where people can find you on social media. If people listening to this have questions, by all means, throw it up into the comments. And we still have one more thing to record for the Outpost, just a very short, kind of deeper, more personal, a bit more intimate, that's not shared with the general public. And the Outpost is something that's there for the Silvercore Club members. Shaun, thank you very much for being on the Silvercore podcast.
I always appreciate hanging out with you.